There comes a point in your life when you get tired of knocking on closed doors, tired of sending messages that go unanswered, tired of pouring love into cups that are already full of somebody else's attention. For so long I thought, if I loved harder, I tried more.
If I showed up in every way possible, people would finally see my worth. But you can't convince someone to value what they don't recognize. I used to run after people who were already walking away from me, thinking that if I ran fast enough I could catch their heart before it slipped out of my hands. But what I learned is this love should not be a chase. It should be a meeting. Real love meets you in the middle. Real love does not run away. When it gets hard, says it builds, it grows. And I realized every time I chased someone, I was running away from myself. I was abandoning my own peace just to be accepted by someone else. That's when I understood that the right people don't need to be chased. They choose to stand beside you because they want to, not because you begged them to. When I quit chasing, I started attracting, because the energy of desperation repels. But the energy of peace, the energy of self-respect, that's magnetic. That's what draws the right people into your life. People who see you, people who hear you, people who stay not because of what you give them, but because of who you are. For years I lived like I was on trial. Every room I walked into, I felt I had to justify my place. Every conversation, every relationship, I thought I had to earn my right to be there. I worked harder than I needed to, gave more than was ever asked, all because deep down I was trying to prove that I was worthy of love, of respect, of being chosen. Remember the exhaustion of constantly performing, constantly overgiving, constantly shrinking parts of myself just to be accepted. It felt like no matter what I did, it was never enough if I succeeded. I worried it still wasn't good enough if I failed. Told myself I had proved the voices right. The ones that said I wasn't valuable. But here's what life taught me. When you live your days trying to prove your worth, you hand the pen of your story to other people. You let them decide if you are enough. You let them measure your value by their own standards. And the truth is, no matter how much you do, there will always be someone who thinks it isn't enough. I started realizing that my worth was not connected to how many boxes I could check, how many people I could please, or how much approval I could collect. My worth was not something to be earned. It was something I was born with. Was not in the validation of others. It was in my very existence. When I quit trying to prove myself, I felt a freedom I had never known before. No longer walk into rooms wondering if I was good enough to be there. I walked in knowing that my presence was already enough. No longer tried to force people to see me a certain way. I simply became who I was unapologetically. Allowed the right people to recognize me without effort. For a long time I carried the weight of every hurt, every betrayal, every harsh word spoken to me. I thought that if I held on to the memory of it, I was protecting myself from ever being hurt that way again. I thought that keeping those wounds fresh in my mind would somehow give me power over the people who caused them. But the truth is the only person I was punishing was myself. Grudges are heavy. They don't just live in your heart. They live in your body. They sit in your chest like a stone. They tighten your shoulders. They steal your sleep. And every time I replayed what someone did to me was as if I was reliving that pain again and again. I gave those moments power long after they had passed. What I didn't understand then was that holding on to anger doesn't keep you safe. It keeps you stuck, ties you to the very people and situations you want to be free from. Every time I rehearsed the hurt, I was giving away my peace. I was making them a permanent part of my story when they didn't deserve that place. There was a turning point when I realized forgiveness is not about saying what happened was okay. It's not about excusing the behavior or pretending it didn't cut deep. Forgiveness is about choosing yourself over the pain. It's about saying, I will not let this define me anymore. Will not let this hold me hostage another day. Letting go of grudges didn't mean forgetting what happened. Meant I could finally move forward without dragging the past behind me. It meant I could open my heart again, not because the other person deserved it, but because I deserve peace. I deserve freedom. There was a time in my life when I thought the harder I worked, the more people would respect me. I thought if I showed up first, left last, the weight of everyone's expectations, someone would finally look at me and say, you are enough. I was running myself into the ground.
Not because I loved what I was doing, but because I was chasing a kind of approval that never lasted. I wore my exhaustion like a badge of honor. I believed rest was weakness, that slowing down meant. I wasn't committed, that pausing meant. I was falling behind. So I kept pushing, kept saying yes when I wanted to say no. I kept proving myself over and over, not realizing that the people who truly valued me didn't need proof at all. Here's what I learned. Validation built on overwork is fragile. It disappears the moment you stop performing. Keeps you locked in a cycle where your worth is measured by output, not by who you are. And no matter how much you achieve, the applause fades, the recognition dims, and you're left asking yourself, what more can I give to finally feel seen? There came a point when my body started speaking louder than my ambition. Fatigue, stress, burnout became my constant companions.
I realized that no amount of work could fill the emptiness of not believing in myself. I had to learn that rest is not laziness, silence is not failure, saying no is not rejection, it's self-respect.
When I stopped overwork for validation, I began to see the difference between being busy and being fulfilled, began to choose work that nourished me instead of drained me.
I started honoring my limits, listening to my body, recognizing that my worth was never tied to how much I could do, but to the fact that I simply exist whole and complete. For most of my life, change felt like loss.
Every time something shifted, whether it was a job, a relationship, or even the way I saw myself, I clung to the familiar because it felt safe. Even when the familiar wasn't serving me, even when it was hurting me, I held on because I was afraid of the unknown.
I told myself it was better to stay where I was than to risk what I couldn't see ahead. But what I didn't understand back then was that fear of change is really fear of growth. It's fear of stepping into a version of yourself that you haven't met yet.
And I learned that the longer you resist change, the more life will push you toward it, sometimes with a gentle nudge, sometimes with a storm that shakes everything around you until you have no choice but to move. Can remember seasons where everything seemed to fall apart at once. Relationships ended, doors closed. Paths I thought were certain suddenly disappeared. At first I saw it as failure. I thought life was taking something away from me. But over time, I realized life was not punishing me. It was preparing me. Every ending was really a beginning.
Real loss was making room for something greater, something I couldn't see while I was holding on so tightly to what was fading. When I quit fearing change, I began to notice how it carried me forward. Change took me to places I never planned to go, but needed to be. Change introduced me to people I never expected to meet, but who shaped me in powerful ways. Change reveals strengths I didn't know I had because I would have never discovered them in comfort. The truth is nothing stays the same. Seasons shift, people evolve, circumstances transform, and the more I resisted it, the more I suffered.
But when I began to embrace change as a teacher instead of an enemy, saw how it had always been guiding me closer to my purpose, guiding me closer to the person I was meant to become. For so many years, I let my life be shaped by the eyes watching me instead of the voice within me.
I wanted to be liked. I wanted to be accepted. I wanted to be chosen, and so I became what everyone else needed me to be. I wore the masks that made them comfortable. I played the roles that earned me applause, bent myself into shapes that looked good to others but felt broken inside.
The truth is, living for approval is a prison without walls. You may look free on the outside, but on the inside every move is calculated. You start asking yourself, will they like this? Will they agree with this? Will they still want me? If I say no, and little by little, you lose yourself. Your voice gets quieter, your desires get buried, your truth gets hidden beneath layers of performance. I can remember times when I said yes while my spirit was screaming, no times when I stayed silent because speaking up might disappoint someone.
Times when I celebrated victories that weren't even mine, but were expected of me, and every time I traded my truth for someone else's approval, I felt the emptiness grow. But here is what life showed me: people's approval is temporary. It shifts with their mood, with their perspective, with their own insecurities. What they praise you for today, they may criticize you for tomorrow. If you build your life on their applause, you will always be chasing something that was never yours to keep. When I quit living for approval, I began to breathe differently. I stopped explaining myself to people who had already made up their minds, stopped asking for permission to live the life I knew was mine to live. I started showing up as myself.
Not the polished version, not the agreeable version, but the real, unfiltered, honest version. And the beautiful thing is the people who truly matter didn't leave when I did that. They loved me more for it when I looked back. Now I see that the happiness I found in my sus didn't come from gaining more.
It came from releasing what no longer served me, quit chasing people who didn't want to stay. I quit trying to prove my worth. I quit holding on to grudges. I quit overworking for validation. I quit fearing change. I quit living for other people's approval. I quit comparing my journey to anyone else's every time. I let go. I made space for something better to enter my life. Peace, clarity, joy, happiness is not about carrying everything. It's about choosing what's worth carrying.
It's about learning that you don't have to fight for a seat at the round table when you were always mean to build your own. So there's one truth I want you to take with you. It is this: life gets lighter when you stop holding on to what weighs you down.
The greatest gift you can give yourself is the courage to let go and the wisdom to know that you were always to know, even without the things you once thought you couldn't live without.
To be signed for secure, it may have shattered your trust, but could your white hawk say to the gifts your souls? There it could not shatter your spirit. Pain, you were broken in pain, Sue and Finn, but you will we not destroyed. Yes, but you were not destroyed. Mim 7, I want every crack a lesson.
Bree became a lesson. Every tear became a seed of wisdom. Me pay. Every tear became a seed of wisdom. Every sleepless I became a reminder that even in your what a mess we are new mom, and in your lowest moments too I trend. You were still stronger than the weight that the subscriber choice for you. But discover that pain is not just self. Discover that pain is not just that effort is in this instruction ruction. And it says, what sayation wanted carved out new strength. Inside of you, it carved out strength. It carved out new strength. Inside of you, freaking twins.
I'm be strength you never peed, so stay you strength you never knew. You had oneself south face, so you found power in silence at. Even that sometime the lotus pond respond, there's no response, so is viewed as no response on us, and late all our years lying at all. Weisen what ours is vector you. You realize that healing it is not weakness, it is a rad fist, this the greatest and I read. You refuse to stay where they left you at a handle is a lose, and everybody me, so he to me. Why you rose, and while you rose on teen savvy me karma began its word. Was say quiz one, and you didn't have to chase at the end, and all you didn't have to set it free, you have to pay any money you didn't have to plan. Why hang? Because 7 away always balances, if Puff is always balances itself. How we a harm they caused will circle back.
The harm they caused, we the harm they caused was will circle by the lessons they tried to avoid a win to their knees. But your victory is, and in their downfall of me, in your rise, and the issue, and I wore music penny horses.
Says, send your strength, now haunts them, because every step you take forward is there after we, while they up with the wave their chooses, and the elderly, and wake with I start with, and the way on he, the way this is I stand, why this is of the way their choices come for pause, and you have chose. Not to knife have chosen not car, I see so you have chosen now see, their darkness. So he one ben when you have chosen freedom, for you have chosen freedom, you have ain peace, you have chosen peace. Now as I have sent I one thing, you have chosen yourself for, so rise, so rise or pacer, for I have rise be beyond the betrayal, the event of bitterness size be, we have rise beyond the bitterness when you will beyond the pain that once made you feel. I went and that went for made bio and may.
Oh, feel the small wink, ever sing, because every time you stand tall, every you stand tall, he have a spine, every time you smile again, every time you sign you spay, every time you smile again, wait for an air 3. So as me is a pew we found heaven as you dear.
You prove that betrayal, it was only betrayal was be a sip as o dig side, a year old why sits south to wonder. You prove that only a chapter, all you take after 7 night, when but 1 2, I'm, not the whole story. The story, so was half, and this, the story is this, a say on you were broken.
What eyes of I do win, what I keem is sen I one bet you are unbreakable.